Are back extensions a good exercise for strengthening the lower back? We're going to look at both sides of the story. So we're going to look at some positives, some negatives, and then we're going to try and piece them together to try and make sense of whether it is a good exercise or not. If you do want to build strength and endurance in your lower back, please do click the link below, go through to my How to Build Low Back Strength and Endurance 12-week online program. There you will obviously do as it says on the tin and strengthen your lower back. In this first part, we're going to look at the back extension. We're going to be using this bit of kit here. There are other ways of doing the back extension, one being on the floor, another one being with a machine when you sit and you sit backwards and forwards, as it were. But for the purposes of this tutorial, because of the equipment that we've got, we're going to be using this. So, with regards to the back extension, is it going to strengthen your lower back? I'm going to say yes. What it's certainly going to do, they're going to get activated, the lower back muscles. So we come into this position, we lean forward, then you come over, and then we come back up. So that's the basic movement of this machine, in so much as where we hinge forward and then we extend back up. So what is this exercise doing? It's getting the longissimus and the iliocostalis and other muscles of the lower back to activate. That is what it's definitely doing. Now, you don't necessarily need to hinge forward like I was doing there, because the activation will come from this position here. Just a static hold, because the lever of the body is being held up by the low back muscles. So you don't need to go through this movement to be able to access these muscles. Also, you can get glutes working as well. So there are some positives to doing the back extension. The reason I'm doing positives and negatives is because a lot of people get very agitated when I just talk about maybe some negatives as to the back extension. Now, I don't prescribe the back extension. I don't feel it's a necessary exercise. I feel that there are other exercises that can do either the same job or a better job, which I'll talk about later on. But for now, if you did the back extension, you will get muscle activation from it. You will probably get strength from it as well. But what it doesn't necessarily do is get rid of an underlying problem if there is one there. Now, what does that mean? So when we come into position here, we come into this position here and all these muscles light up. So you may be able to feel them when you go into this position. Now, you've then got longissimus, iliocostalis coming off the mid back onto the lower back. They are activating. That is what you are going to get from here. What you'll also get if you hinge forward, they will relax and then they will contract. They will relax and they will contract. But what we're going to do in the next part is we're going to talk a little bit more about that position and that movement and how it may have, or how it could have, a negative effect on your lower back. Part 2, some negatives to the lower back extension, or the low back extension. Now, as we've described, we come into this position and we can hold. So this is one part or one form of like a back extension or a low back muscle activation exercise. This would be it. So what might be some negatives or some drawbacks or some not so effective elements of that? Now, with regards to this exercise, there is a lot of activation that comes with it. So if you have back pain, and the pain is specifically when the spine is under compression, which is when there's a lot of muscle activation around the spine. So if you think of compression, that is basically if I've got a sponge in my hand and I squeeze it with my hand, that's compression. That's what the muscles are doing to the spine. So when you come into this position, that's what those muscles are doing. So if your back doesn't like that, or if you do the back extension and it aggravates it or irritates any pain, then it's probably a good idea to not do it and do something else. Now, what you can do instead, we'll do in part 3. But for now, so that will be one. So you've got a compression element there, which can aggravate the lower back. If we then add in the flexion and the extension, if you've got a flexion intolerant spine, so a spine that doesn't like flexion, so that may be when you sit at your desk, that may be when you sit in your car, that may be, or even extension intolerant as well, which is then where the back extension comes in a little bit more, because we go through this movement, flexion, and this movement, extension. If your spine doesn't like either of those movements, then again, it's probably not the most effective exercise to be putting into a workout program, for the very simple reason that the flexion and the extension is what causes the problem, or what triggers the pain. That's what that exercise does. So you're, in some respects, you're causing your lower back pain by doing that exercise. So there is that underlying problem with the back extension, is the fact that there's a lot of compression, and you've got the flexion and the extension going through the movement. So with regards to the positive, you will get activation from it, you will probably get strength from it, but if you have a certain type of pain, then it's possibly going to cause a problem. Also with that, if you are a beginner and you have a deconditioned lower back, it's possibly not going to be the best exercise to start with because of the amount of activation that comes with it, which can then aggravate the lower back because the muscles are so deconditioned. So it's probably worth starting somewhere else, and then as you get more advanced and that you know you don't have a lower back problem, then it could be a useful exercise. Now, what I would say, even if you are advanced and you don't have a bad back, I would probably say this exercise, so the static hold, is more effective than this exercise with the flexion and the extension, because the flexion and the extension can cause a problem, or certainly contribute to a problem that's already there. So it's worth not doing the flexion and the extension, and the static hold will be more effective. So again, we have to think about context of what you want to achieve and what is the condition of your lower back, and then we can start piecing together what it is that we need to do. So there are some, let's just say, pluses to the back extension, some drawbacks to the back extension, and some context as to possibly how to go about using it. What we'll do in part 3 is talk about some alternatives. Some alternatives to the low back extension are very simple. Again, it depends where you are, if you're a beginner, if you're advanced, whatever it may be, with regards to alternatives that you can do. But you can get some very effective exercises that can do the same job, if not better, with maintaining first of all, a better posture through the spine, but also less compression through the spine. So if we start at the beginner's end of it, we would come down into this position, onto all fours, get the spine into position, and then hold. So we would come into a bird dog, and we would hold. Now, why is a bird dog a more effective, or why would I think a bird dog is a more effective exercise? With regards to the back extension, that will tend to isolate certain muscles and concentrate a lot of pressure in certain muscles. What the bird dog does is it spreads it out a lot more. Now, we have to look at the lower back as one part within a bigger system. So if we can work the bigger system, then we're going to have a much healthier back, rather than concentrating all the pressure in the lower back. Because with the bird dog, what we get is when we lift this arm, we get the lats working. When we lift this leg, we get the glutes working. And then in between the glutes and the lats is something called the thoracolumbar fascia. Now that is a fascia that essentially goes across the lower back and joins the lats and the glutes together. Now when that's pulled taut, when you get the lats and the glutes working, you get a much stronger lower back. So just by getting that working, you get a stronger lower back, regardless of doing a back extension and getting the low back muscles working. So that's why a bird dog is a very effective exercise. What we can then do is we can then come up onto our feet, and then we can come into this single leg RDL type position. Again, we can have glutes working this side. If we want to, we can have the arm up and the lats working, but we can press the shoulder down and we can balance here. So what we've got is we've got a little bit more activation through the lower back because we're hinging forward, like on the back extension machine. We've got the glutes working as well, and we can get the lats working because we can press the shoulders down. So again, we can get much more of the back working. We can get the diagonal part to it working, going across the lower back. So again, we can reduce the compression. So there are lots of different alternatives that we can put in place that are going to be more effective than the back extension machine. When we're talking about adding weight, we could go into an RDL, we could go into a good morning where we have a bar across the back, and then we come forward, and then we lift up. We're maintaining posture of the spine, we're hinging at the hip, we're activating glutes, we're activating abdominal wall, we're activating lats. So that's just 3 examples, or maybe 4 examples of some alternatives that are going to be better than the lower back, the low back extension. So again, we need to think about what do we want it for, why are we doing it, what's the condition of our lower back, and what are any potential alternatives that could do the same job. So when you go about thinking about, do I need a back extension, start thinking about it in that way of what it is you need, what condition are you in, and what are some potential alternatives. Many thanks for watching. If you've liked the content, hit the like button. If you've learned something new, hit the thanks button. If you've got a comment or a question, please do leave it below. And if you want to watch more content like this, please do hit the subscribe and the bell icon, and you'll be notified when I release my next tutorial.